MEI was the fact that my father was a consultant for people that owned generally family-owned department stores and in small towns. And he was designing these stores and doing layouts for them, and so we decided that a good thing would be, why don't we do that and then make money off of the actual construction work. And we had a partner at the time with the name of McNally, and he was supposed to be our chief salesman, except he never sold anything. And my dad kind of got aggravated at that, and so we split up, my dad and I, and we bought a shop out. We're using my severance pay from the Navy, and he matched it, and we essentially bought the shop out, and they had everything in there to build store fixtures and so forth. So we got that going, and my dad had a very good relationship with Davison's, which is now Macy's, and they wanted to remodel a major store in Macon, Georgia. I don't know if you remember the store, but the store's on two sides across the street, and they built a bridge across the street. And he put the first fluorescent lights in a department store in Rich's down there. We had a good year that year. I think we made $80,000 that first year. But from that it grew slowly, and we got a lot of business from my dad's association with these people out in this small town. We needed to borrow some money, and so knowing my cousin, a banker, I went to him to borrow some money. They turned me down, wouldn't just lend me any money. So I did at that time. I met Gene Jones and Bob Anderson with C&S Bank, and I sat down with them about 15 minutes. I had my money, and I banked with them the rest of my
was most proud of was what he did with MEI, because he started out with just that small mustard outfit, which his dad matched, and built it up to a really thriving business. And he built it with an honest reputation, and we got about word of mouth. No matter how much, if we lost money, he always went back and made it right, you know. And he did a great job, and we had a good living. At first it was a struggle, but once it got going, it made a good living for us. We were able to do the things we wanted to do for our children and grandchildren, and lots of good memories and trips. And I was very proud of that. He's just what I thought he would do when I met him. Our early years, the biggest worry was money. It was hard times, you know, but when Bop started the business, everything had to go back in there. So if one of the children got sick, that blew the budget, you know. And, you know, I frame everything, and we had a bank statement. That was back when you didn't have to have a balance, you know, of any amount, a sizable amount. And so we got our bank statement, and it was the day before payday, and it was $1.69, and I framed it. I mean, that's what life was like. We lived hand to mouth, you know, kind of thing. Well, I didn't get to go with him when he was on the tug, you know, so I stayed at home and got a job, and that's when I found out I was pregnant. And we were so excited about that, and everybody in the family, because your dad was the first grandchild, and I mean, and he was so rotten. I mean, everybody just loved him and took so much time with him. And he was weighed, let's see, 9 pounds, 8 ounces, I believe it was. And he was looked like he looked strong when he came along. So then, when Clay came along, the doctor said to me, "It's another fullback." And same doctor. And I was happy to have another boy because I thought, I was used to boys by then, and they seemed to be easy. So it was wonderful. It gives you a real purpose for your marriage, I think, then. But it also totally consumes your time. And we had less money then. When he was in the service, we almost got to where we could have extra money, but then when they came along, we didn't. But it was worth every bit of it. And they fought, the two of them, and as Lawton says, they fought and turned my hair white, and they until they got to be teenagers. Then they had a common enemy, us. So then they got to be friends. But they were great. They really were growing up.
Well, one of the interesting things about Keith and Clay was that we bought this house that had half burned out at Niskey Lake and made a ridiculous offer on it, which the guy held for about 6 months and finally came back and sold us that house. And remodeling that house was, well, it's been better if the whole thing had burned to the ground. But we started back and remodeled it, and the house didn't have any heating system in it, so we had to put in electric baseboard heaters, which is not efficient at all.
It was a big airy house.
And we were there in a big ice storm, and the trees all started breaking. When they freeze and break, they make a terrible noise, and we eventually had to move with my mother and dad to get warm.
I first said, "Isn't this wonderful? Because we'll be like a family again, no TV or anything." After about 3 days, it was so cold, and we got in the big den and had a fire, but then you had to go to the bathroom. It was freezing in the bathroom, and so it kind of got old. So they lived in family.
One thing about building a fire, the fire has to have air, and it just seems like it rushes right to that fireplace.
You talk about Keith and Clay's lives. They had the wonderful growing. Well, they were actually about 9 and 10, I think, when they moved there, but it was a 25-acre lake with no power boats on there, so we had a canoe. Lawton built them a wonderful rope swing that they could swing out and drop in the middle of the lake. And they caught turtles and sold them at the pet store, and they fished. Your dad caught bass there, big bass there. And one time he wanted to go to Florida to fish, and Lawton said, "Why? There are better fish out here." He said, "I know where they all are." But they had a great growing up there. We lived there about 15 years, and so they were pretty good. Well, actually, we moved right after your mom and dad married. It was a great, but the main thing that we did with them, that you say the fun things, we did spur-of-the-minute things with them, like one Sunday after church. Lawton was always good about coming up with different things. He'd say, "Let's just ride up the North Georgia mountains." It was in the fall, remember that? And we went up, and Keith and Clay just skipped rocks in the creeks for hours. I mean, that's the kind of thing we did with them, It was fun. And we never did things, particularly then, that cost a lot of money because we didn't have it, but they were family things and fun things.
We went to Savannah several times.
Well, the most fun time was the one.
Yeah.
We were playing the cards at Carolyn races, and we'd put all 4 of the children in bed. And about 11 o'clock, we said, "Let's go to Savannah," because Dorothy and Lawton were already down there. We drove all night because it took forever. Put them in the back of the station wagon, the 4 children. They slept all the way. It was the most fun we had ever had. As we got there, and I was walking, the creek was a tidal creek, so it was gooky mud, but it had no water in it when it was down. And I was walking down the creek with Lawton's dad, who was the biggest tease in the world, and he threw me down in that mud, and then I threw him down the mud, and the whole family got in it. Lawton got in it, Clay got in it. Lawton's cousin had been to a wedding. He had on a suit. They came and he took his coat off and got down, and we were all buried in that gooky mud. I've never had so much fun in all my life, and that was one of those. That's the kind of spur of the moment thing we did. So that's the kind of upbringing they had. You want to sit there?